Hi there, I'm Thomas and welcome to Prussian Husar. Now we are about to look in the second part of my 3-part series of my progress in mounted weaponry, especially lance fencing. The contents of this video are, after this introduction, a short look at the evolving of my equipment. Afterwards we jump right into the riding, and at the end we are having a quick conclusion. Let's dive into the next part. Well, looking at my used equipment the next few times, I have to say that there weren't any changes in it. Just getting along with all the stuff I already tested. But we can observe a huge evolution here. The hitting on targets and control intensified. Let's have a look and jump right into the riding. Now, let's jump right into it. We started with a quick warming up to get back to the point where we were last time. Of course, first it was walking time again and getting back comfortable. About the thrusting movements, let's have a more detailed look at them. I was lucky to find a great source in an English journal from 1906 with great pictures. The techniques are the same the Germans and French used. This British article states, quote, "The 19th century has seen the restoration of the lance in all armies of Europe, and the most scientific of modern armies, the German, took the lead." End of quote. Why the German army was considered to be the most scientific, we will discuss another time. But we should keep that in mind for a while. So let's build up a more detailed glimpse based on that article. As we can see, there are different thrusts which could involve the top or the foot of the lance. Since I used mostly the top, we concentrate on that for now. Now, let's look at the photographs and examine the thrusts in more detail. We have to keep in mind that all of it is a game of balance to not fall off the horse while doing the thrusts. We have to keep it calm in the hip, because that is our main part of the body that communicates with the horse. As directions for the thrusts, we have the front, the sides and more or less the back. Then the space in between these directions, and additionally either straight or to the ground. The most powerful thrusts could be made to the front, while the power decreases gradually depending on the angle all the way up to the sides. On the sides, or with an angle of 90 degrees, you get the least powerful thrusts, because at some point the mobility of your shoulder is limited. So, thrusting down towards the ground on the front means the arm gets stretched in a quick movement there. The moving starts at the hand, goes through the wrist, elbow and ends at the shoulder. That is what you are doing in every direction. The main point is that you have to look first in that direction you want to thrust. Then you follow your eyes. This movement explains why you have limited power thrusting to the side. Again, the shoulder is not completely usable. At this point, we were almost done with our warm-up and on our way preparing some exercises. The horse was stretched enough, I was back used to the lance, as was the horse. Our communication was back at a good level, so we had our mental and physical preparation done. In contrast to the previous times, this time we began with various exercises like turning in the box. We did this to improve my control and our communication. Besides, these kinds of maneuvers are so helpful in a fight. being in a fight against opponents and it starts to get messy, the point is basically to get in a good position to set yourself a hit, but not getting one in return. Here is to mention that dogfights in planes are very similar to these cavalry fights. In both, the main points are about getting into the right position, to outmaneuver your opponent and get a hit. This is one part of the explanation why so many cavalrymen left the cavalry and became pilots. Usually, they still wore their old uniform. The most famous example would be Manfred von Richthofen or the Red Baron, who was previously an Ulan of the Ulan Regiment No. 1 and joined the just being built Air Force in the middle of 1915. Back to our riding. As you can see, we changed the pattern this time. The targets were placed across the riding ground and on the side to get some more variation with our targets. Before hitting the targets, we intensified our work in trot while thrusting. Trot and stop to increase my feeling for the rhythm of this pace. Since we worked previously most of the time in walk and just a bit in trot, we increased our time in trot. Our idea was to do first short episodes in trot, then stop and back to trot, and be gradually longer in the pace. Basically, we trained the ability to stop fast in order to change our directions quickly. A right time stop and quick change is really important for lance fencing, since it increases my control over the horse. Additionally, it makes us a better team and improves our trust and safety. First, we went straight, but pretty soon we were riding some circles. As you can see, our communication was quite good. She reacted to my fine help. Here, in this changing of direction, we can excellently see how we follow the lance. First, the lance, in combination with my side, shows us the direction. My upper body follows, then my legs, together with the horse. More thrusting, changing our speed, and directions followed. Before going on to the next steps, we first needed to train some basics. More thrusting was done with different grips. Circles and trot were done to get used to the different movements. The single-handed steering and changing of directions became better. Here we can see again how our movement followed our look. My sit on the horse was still a piece of work, but increased slightly over the time and number of tries. This time I laid an emphasis on handling the lance in changing my grip several times in a row. There are 3 techniques to do this. Here I used 2 of them. One of them is fast but risky, meaning you throw up the lance a bit or let it fall just to catch it and be ready. The problem is you might let your lance fall and lose it easily. Since timing and distance need to be trained again and again and again, this was our main goal here. Then we began with hits again. Main theme now was timing and distance. Being in the right distance still is a piece of work. I gave the undergrip more shots this time. The distance and movement differs from the overgrip. So, in order to understand the lens properly and to know which grip and movement should be used when, this was reasonable. The undergrip would have seen a higher usage against infantry or ground targets. Even though some thrusts with the overgrip could be used too. It always depends on the situation and your decision. And here we see a good hit on the upper part of the cone. Another technique is much safer but more complicated to learn. You put your lance under your arm, then change your grip, screw out your arm, hand, and finally the lance. So you get a twisting motion and tada! The grip is changed without losing touch to the lance. We will see both all the time in this session. This technique is possible both ways. Screwing the lance in under your arm and get it out from under your arm. At some point we felt that good that we even gave it some shots in rising trot. That was extraordinarily good for my coordination and being in a rhythm with the horse. A thing that we can clearly observe is that the handling with the lance already got better. That's why there are these spinning moves sometimes above my head, to improve the handling further. Additionally, I got more confident operating the lance, so I tried increasingly more different handling moves, even in trot. In this section, everything comes together. Rising trot, changing the grip and handling the lance. It required a lot of my skills, but again, we see how much training it needs to get a proper hit. Timing and especially the right feeling for the distance needs practice as well as experience. We can clearly observe it here. Just count how many times I had to ride an attack against this cone, before finally knocking it over. This attack is now already the second. And now the third and final one. Afterwards, quick catching a breath before moving on. Here we see changing the grip in a close-up. And more rising trot in order to get the feeling for the rhythm. And more practice and building up experience for the right distance. Of course, another miss, since everything came together again. Here we got a perfect hit. Right distance, timing, speed, spot and force. We managed to knock it over after the third adjustment of the distance. Working more on the distance. Again, we can see multiple misses in a row and gradually getting closer. Maneuvering the horse, however, worked out pretty fine. The direction we took and changed for the attacks did not matter. And finally, we got a second perfect hit. Just look how that cone gets blown away. Then more handling exercises followed up. Spinning, grip changing with various techniques, more spinning on my side and above my head. It is a great thing to get to know your weapon that way. That way I was possible to evolve and build up a first feeling for the weapon in terms of its weight and length. Another thing to consider is where the balance point of that weapon lies. That has a huge impact on the handling and the exercises. More movements of changing my grip with a more complicated technique to build up my muscle memory. At some point we were at the gallop again, which I mostly use to train thrust movements in every direction. That is basically building up my muscle memory. Before doing anything crazy in gallop, we first had to get used to have that speed while holding the lance. We did it step by step, always in the same rhythm. Gallop, stop, backwards. Gallop, stop, backwards. Because sometimes it is just better to do something than to think too much about stuff. And that's what we did here. Doing and not thinking. Besides, it is a great exercise for control speed and direction, since not only my arms but legs as well need it and still need to build up their muscle memory step by step. Often the most boring things and exercises from the outside are the most effective ones in terms of building the base for all the fancy stuff to come. Then we got to that point of thrusting extensively in gallop. We even managed to change the grip while speeding. Just let's enjoy and observe it for now. We can observe here for sure that I was not that stiff in my upper body anymore, but got more ease in it. Still some stiffness, yes, but not as much as I was the previous times. And, of course, more spinning, thrusting, even more spinning to get used to all these kinds of movements towards the end of this session. Obviously, we are now at the end of the second part. What is to say? Well, since there were not any changes for a while, but a constant improvement, it seems like we are on the right track. We made huge progress in terms of control and communication. Operating with the lance became better. Additionally, the three of us, horse, riding instructor, and I, got more and more confident with the project. There still is a way to go, but we are getting there. Using the riding pants more and more, it got really comfy. So it gets better to ride with it, and I get more and more used to the historical equipment, which we have to take into account too. The overall footwork became better and better, so was the timing. Just having the right distance is still not easy. I'm slowly evolving a feeling for it. But it still is not easy to reckon the right distance for an effective hit. The third part will be up soon. If you want to discuss something or want to know more, just leave a comment below. Thank you all for watching, have a good one, and see you next time.